Hello, everybody, and welcome to my first ever episode of The Penalty Box. And this podcast is going to take you on a journey through the fascinating history of sports. We're going to talk about the past, the present, the game, the rules, the players, the drama. I'm going to cover it all. I'm your host, Mia Redders, and today, in this specific episode, we are going to be diving into the captivating history of one of the world's most loved sports, hockey. So strap on your skates, grab your sticks, and let's hit the ice. Before we jump into the history of hockey, I want to just take a moment and talk about the origins of the game. And I know you're probably like, Mia, come on, we want to hear about current things. But I want this podcast to be a way for people that don't know much about hockey to learn about hockey and then obsess about it with the rest of us. So that means going all the way back and talking about how hockey has been dated back thousands of years. Ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans, they all played games with these curved sticks and balls. But it wasn't until the 19th century that a more recognizable form of hockey began to take shape. We can attribute the origins of modern hockey to the frosty ponds and icy rivers of Canada. I love my Canadian listeners. But in the early 1800s, British soldiers stationed in Canada introduced the concept of field hockey, which I played, but that was then adapted to being played on ice. And the first organized games of hockey took place in Montreal in 1875, and it began when a group of kids from McGill University played with a puck instead of a ball. And, as the game gained popularity, there were a bunch of developments that helped shape the sport that we know today. In 1877, the first official hockey association, the Amateur Hockey Association of Canada, which is the AHAC, was formed. And this was a huge milestone because it set rules and regulations and promoted consistency and fair play across teams. Of course, the sport spread rapidly across Canada, and by the turn of the 20th century, it had captivated the entire nation. The Stanley Cup is the oldest professional sports trophy in North America, and it was introduced in 1893. And if you're like me, you were probably wondering, who's Stanley? Stanley is Lord Stanley of Preston, and he's the Governor General of Canada, or was at the time. The cup was awarded to the top amateur hockey team, but in 1910, it became the prize for professional teams. And meanwhile, hockey was making its way beyond Canada's borders. In 1892, the first recorded indoor hockey game took place in Michigan, United States, and the sport gained popularity in the United States and Europe, which led to the formation of various leagues and international competitions. In 1917, the National Hockey League, which we know is the NHL, was established and became the biggest professional league in North America. Over the years, the NHL has grown in many ways, including size and stature, and they showcase some of the greatest talents and rivalries the sport has ever seen. Now we're going to talk about the Winter Olympics. Ice hockey made its first appearance as an Olympic sport in 1920 at the Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium. And then it became a staple of the Winter Olympics in 1924, which was 4 years later. The Olympic ice hockey tournaments have provided unforgettable moments, including the Miracle on Ice in 1980, when the United States defeated the heavily favored Soviet Union. As the 20th century progressed, hockey continued to evolve, and the introduction of new technologies such as fiberglass sticks and modern goalie masks transformed the game. The sport also expanded beyond its traditional strongholds with the establishment of professional leagues in Europe and the growth of women's hockey. Go women! Like I just said, and as we all know, the 20th century, it was such a transformative period for hockey. And I want to just dive into some of the key moments and developments that happened during this time. We know that in the early 1900s, the sport grew, obviously. And as time progressed, we started getting these legendary players like Maurice Richard, Gordie Howe, we all know him, and Bobby Orr. They all emerged during this era and left this just huge mark on the game. But the NHL's original six era lasted from 1942 to 1967, and it's often regarded as a golden age in hockey history. The league consisted of the Montreal Canadiens, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Detroit Red Wings, the Boston Bruins, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the New York Rangers. These teams showcased exceptional talent and fierce rivalries, and this captivated fans across North America. In the latter half of the 20th century, international competition became increasingly prominent. The Summit Series of 1972 is an 8-game series that was between the Soviet Union and Canada, and this, to me, stands out as such a historic moment. The series was intensely competitive and showcased the contrasting playing styles of the two nations. Canada ultimately secured victory and cemented its reputation as a hockey powerhouse. Another huge development was the establishment of the World Championships in 1920. This annual tournament brought together national teams from around the world to compete for international glory. The Soviet Union did emerge as a dominant force, and they captured a bunch of championships and showcased their exceptional talent and teamwork to the world. All right, now we're going to skip ahead a little bit and talk about how when we approached the turn of the century, there were all these advancements in technology, and this began to impact the game. So, we got introduced to instant replay, video review systems, advancements in equipment like composite sticks, lightweight goalie gear. All that stuff brought new dimensions to the sport and enhanced fairness and player safety. Moreover, the 21st century has seen the globalization of hockey, with the sport expanding to tons of new markets. The NHL's expansion into non-traditional hockey markets like Las Vegas and Seattle, it's helped broaden the game's reach and attract diverse fan bases. And that brings us to the present day, where hockey continues to capture the hearts of millions around the world, from the intense rivalries and thrilling playoffs of the NHL to the excitement of international competitions like the Olympics and the World Championships. These things together makes hockey such a loved sport and a sport that unites fans across borders. All right, this episode, as we know, is all about the history of hockey, hence the title, but we are going to go into the rules of the game and all of that in probably the next episode. This next point, I want to wrap it into the history, since technically this is history, and it's just some information about the 32 teams in the National Hockey League. I'm going to cover all 32 of them, give them a little blurb, and just get you introduced to the teams. As you guys know, this podcast is going to be primarily focused on the Boston Bruins and the New Jersey Devils. Those are my two favorite teams and the teams that I root for. But, of course, they play other teams in the league, so you're going to be hearing about other teams occasionally as well, and I want you guys to get to know them a little bit. All right, let's dive right in. So first up, we have the Anaheim Ducks, and they are located in Anaheim, California. They joined the NHL in 1993, and then they won their first Stanley Cup in 2007. I'm sorry, I'm reading through my notes. I take notes, obviously, if you couldn't tell. I want this to be clear and concise and helpful. But it's just crazy to me that I have friends on these teams, and I just had a little fangirl moment. Sorry, but next up is the Arizona Coyotes, and they're based in Glendale, Arizona, and they actually moved from Winnipeg in 1996, and they have not won a Stanley Cup, but it's okay. We have hope. I mean, I don't really, but it's okay. Number 3 is the Boston Bruins, and they are one of the original 6 teams, and they were established in 1924, and of course, they're based in Boston, Massachusetts, where I am. They've won the Stanley Cup 6 times, and their most recent victory was in 2011. Then we have the Buffalo Sabres. They were founded in 1970, and they're based in Buffalo, New York, and they have not won a Stanley Cup. Number 5 is the Calgary Flames. They were originally located in Atlanta, Georgia, but then moved to Calgary, Alberta in 1960, which is kind of random, but they won the Stanley Cup in 1989. Yes. Number 6, the Carolina Hurricanes. They were known as the Hartford Whalers, but the Hurricanes relocated to North Carolina in 1997, and then they won the Stanley Cup in 2006. Number 7, we are not even going to get into. I mean, I'm going to get into it, but just they're not a great team. The Chicago Blackhawks. They were another member of the original 6, and they were established in 1926, and obviously born and raised, created in Chicago, Illinois. They won the Stanley Cup 6 times, their most recent time in 2015. They actually had the first draft pick of this year's draft because they suck. Number 8, we have the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche moved to Denver, Colorado from Quebec in 1995. They won the Stanley Cup twice in 1996 and 2001. Then we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they are based in Columbus, Ohio, and they joined the NHL in the year 2000, and they are still pursuing their first Stanley Cup, but I have to say that I can definitely see them on the rise. They have acquired some pretty good players over the years, so I would not be surprised if they start making a bigger name for themselves. Then we have the Dallas Stars. They were originally the Minnesota North Stars, but then they relocated to Dallas, Texas in 1993, and then they won the Stanley Cup in 1999. Number 11, we have the Detroit Red Wings, and they were another original 6 team, and they were founded in 1926 in Detroit, Michigan, and they won the Stanley Cup 11 times, and their most recent victory was in 2008. Then we have the Edmonton Oilers. They are located in Edmonton, Alberta, and they joined the NHL in 1979 and won the Stanley Cup 5 times, most notably during the 1980s. Then we have the Florida Panthers. They were established in 1993 in Sunrise, Florida, and they have not won a Stanley Cup yet. This year, we're not even going to get into that. That was a fluke. Then we have the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings joined the NHL in 1967 and are based in Los Angeles, California. They won the Stanley Cup twice in 2012 and 2014. Up next is the Minnesota Wild. They were founded in 2000, and they are located in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they are still going after their first Stanley Cup. Then we have the Montreal Canadiens. They are the oldest continuously operating professional ice hockey team worldwide, and the Canadiens were founded in 1909, based in Montreal, Quebec. They have won the Stanley Cup a record of 24 times. Number 17 on our list is the Nashville Predators. The Predators joined the NHL in 1998, and they are based in Nashville, Tennessee. They have not won a Stanley Cup yet. Right, now we're going to get into my babies, my absolute favorite team, and they are going to get a little bit of a longer blurb because I love them so much, and this podcast is going to talk a lot about the Devils, like a lot. So this blurb is going to be extremely long. But if you're here, you probably like the Devils, so we're going to jump into it. They are a ice hockey team based in Newark, New Jersey, and they were established in 1974 as the Kansas City Scouts, and then they moved to Denver, Colorado in 1976, where they became the Colorado Rockies. And then in 1982, the team relocated to New Jersey and was renamed the New Jersey Devils. Our team began to find success in the 1990s, and we got a reputation for having this like strong defensive play and this disciplined style of hockey. In the 1994 to the 1995 season, the Devils won their first Stanley Cup championship, and they defeated the Detroit Red Wings in the finals. And then the team continued to be a competitive force in the NHL, making several playoff appearances and capturing 2 more Stanley Cup titles in 2000 and 2003, the year I was born. And hopefully next year, I have faith. The Devils remained a consistent playoff team throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, but they did face financial challenges and ownership changes. In 2013, the team moved from the Prudential Center in Newark, where they had been playing since 2007, to the Metropolitan Division of the Eastern Conference. And while the team has experienced ups and downs over the years, they have such a passionate and loving fan base and a rich history in the NHL. We have so many talented players that have had success during the season, the postseason. this franchise continues to strive for success, and we aim to bring another Stanley Cup championship to New Jersey. And I don't doubt that that will happen this year because we just get stronger every season. I don't like this team, sorry. But the next team we're going to talk about is the New York Rangers, and they are based in New York City. They are one of the oldest teams, and that's because they were founded in 1926. They were one of the original 6, and they won their first Stanley Cup in the 1927 to 1928 season. We know that they have won multiple cups, and their most recent Stanley Cup was won in 2022. Yeah. Hopefully not again this year. Next up are the Ottawa Senators, and they are based in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and they were established in 1992. They've made a lot of playoff appearances, including the impressive run to the Stanley Cup final in 2007. They are a cool team. I mean, they're not in my division, so I'm not super informed about them, but go Senators. This next team I also have a friend on, so I'm biased, but the Philadelphia Flyers are based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, and they were founded in 1967, and they got a back-to-back Stanley Cup championship trophy in 1974 and 1975, that's impressive. That must have felt so good to win 2 years in a row. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they are based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They were established in, oh God, I have something on my arm. That scared me. They were established in 1967, and they won multiple Stanley Cup championships, including back-to-back titles in 2016 and 2017. Next up, we have the San Jose Sharks, and they are based in, you guessed it, San Jose, California. They were established in 1991, and they really quickly became very prominent. They have not won a Stanley Cup, but they have made numerous playoff appearances and are just known as a very competitive team. All right, this next team is the Seattle Kraken, and they are based in Seattle, Washington, and they are the newest team in the NHL. They came on in 2021, which is just crazy to me. Another thing that I think is cool is that they're named after this like mythical sea creature. I don't know. I think it's cool. I like teams with cool names. They have not won a cup yet because they are so new, but they seem like they are going to be a very good team in the future. We're almost done, I promise. We're going to just talk about a couple more teams, starting off with the St. Louis Blues. They are from St. Louis, Missouri, and they first became a team in 1967. They've had their ups and downs, but they actually had this like crazy resurgence and like got new heights of success in 2019 when they got their first ever Stanley Cup. Good for them. Celebrate. We only got 6 more teams to cover, so hang in there. We're going to talk about Tampa Bay Lightning, and they are honestly known as one of the NHL's most successful franchises. They were established in 1992, and they're pretty good. They've gotten a lot of championships, including the Stanley Cup, of course, and I'm kind of scared of them. I'm a little bit scared. The next team we're going to talk about are the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they represent Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and they were established in 1917. They have gone through a championship drought since 1967, but they still have supporters that root for them, and, maybe they'll bring the Stanley Cup back to Toronto sometime. The next team we're going to cover is the Vancouver Canucks. They were established in 1970, and even though they have not won a Stanley Cup yet, they still have unwavering support from their fans, and they have Quinn Hughes. So next up on our list is this past season's Stanley Cup winners, the Vegas Golden Knights. They are based in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they're fairly new. They were established in 2017, and they are just they're very good. They're very good. They deserved the win this season. I know a lot of people disagree, but they have this like insanely dynamic style of play. You know, they have swift transitions and aggressive forechecking, solid goaltending, and these things together have just become their signature on the ice. And I'm going to talk about them a little bit more because they won this year, this past season, but off the ice, they have become this like huge part of the Las Vegas community, and kind of made everybody have this strong bond, and they do all these like charitable events and community outreach programs, and I don't know, they seem like a good team, and I was happy for them when they won this year. I wish it could have been the Devils, but I thought they deserved it. Right, the Washington Capitals, they represent the capital, Washington, D.C., and they were created in 1974, and they have had like a bunch of successful seasons and memorable playoff runs. And the last team that we are going to talk about today are the Winnipeg Jets, and they relocated from Atlanta in 2011, and obviously to Winnipeg, duh. But they have like really good defensive play, really good goaltending, and they are, you know, definitely becoming a force in the league. As our journey through these like thrilling tales of hockey history comes to a close, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into every team and just the history of hockey from the early days to the, you know, modern arenas filled with these like passionate fans. I'm glad that I can tell you some of these stories that have shaped the world of hockey. Through all these years and eras that I've told you about, we as a league have experienced triumphs and tribulations. We've seen like legends emerge and etch their names into the sport's like most known people, you know, from the greats like Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, to all the unsung heroes who gave all of their love and talent to a game. We've just been able to cover a lot of hockey's warriors. You know, we were able to talk about the miracle on ice and record-breaking achievements, and each chapter that we talked about, each little blurb that I spoke about has left a huge dent and this huge mark in the sport that we all love. But before I leave today, I want to mention that hockey is more than just a game. I don't care how cheesy that sounds, but it seriously is this unifying force that brings communities together. It transcends borders and cultures, and it embodies resilience and teamwork and the relentless pursuit of excellence. And it's just a testament to the human spirit and just the enduring power of friendship and teamwork. I'm getting so like cheesy, ew. But as I'm saying bye, I just want you to embrace these traditions and like share the stories that we spoke about, and together we can continue the legacy of this remarkable sport. And whether you are a diehard fan or a newcomer to the game, let these stories and this information inspire you to create your own moments off or on the ice, whether you are like me reporting on things that are happening or you are in the NHL or aiming to be in the NHL. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you in the next episode, which will be all about the game. But until we meet again, keep your sticks on the ice, your skates sharp, and your love for the game burning bright. This is Mia signing off, and I'm reminding you that the history of hockey is a testament to the spirit of human perseverance. Goodbye, and may the spirit of the game forever be in your heart. See you next time.